right, welcome to another episode of the Logicast. My name is Blanca Khan, joined by Gunnar Eos, Mr. Esoteric Skills, and Huddle Wolf. Wasn't here for the last three episodes. Apologies, I was sick, and then the last episode I overslept, so I missed the recording. That's the truth. It's out there. Judge me if you want. We're moving on.
Dum, dum, dum.
This week's topic is going to be a mixed bag. I know last week the guys did a hot takes choose your number kind of a deal where depending on the number determine the topic, and they did about I think four topics last week. So we're going to be doing something similar this week. What we're going to be doing exactly the same thing, just different topics, and we're going to have a wheel to show you, and we're going to spin it, and that the fate will determine what we're going to talk about in today's episode. I don't know what the topics are. Esoteric knows what they are. He will reveal them as the numbers are displayed. Do we understand, gentlemen? Are we ready to spin the wheel?
Yes,
I
sir.
am indeed ready.
First topic. Let's see what RNG wants us to discuss. Number 9. Wait for the blink.
Bing.
All right, all right. So, number 9. Early access games are just paid betas. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first because it's easy. Agree. They're absolutely paid betas. They're designed to gauge the
100%.
temperature of whether or not the game is going to do well, and it's a way to fund the game's continued development to eventually become a gold release game. So that's a very mild take, but I digress.
No, it's not. No, it is. It is. Um, my only caveat to that would be which I'm not accusing Kong of saying that, is that they're not inherently evil to a certain degree. They can be abused. I'm sure Ubisoft would love to do that, but there are some games where they treat early access as kind of, if you're a hardcore fan, you can support it. So okay, the perfect example is Path of Exile 2. That currently is it's in early access period. The game itself is free to play. They make money off of cosmetic microtransactions and whatnot. But if you want to play now, you pay $30, and they give you currency, they give you cosmetics, but you're mostly playing for early access, and you do understand that you are essentially beta testing the game. They encourage you to report bugs, overpowered builds, they'll tweak stuff, but realistically, if you're paying the $30, you are more than likely a hardcore fan of the first Path of Exile, and you are okay with essentially beta testing the game because you just want to play the sequel. So I really liked Path of Exile, and I did pay for the early access of PoE 2, and I'm having fun with it. So yes, TLDR, it is not a hot take. That is real, but my only caveat is that they're not all equal. Some are evil and want to, oh, this game didn't do well. Sorry guys, and they walk away with, a certain amount of money. But sometimes it is genuine, and the example I bring is PoE 2. So, yeah.
All right. What say you, Wolf?
100%. 100%. I'm not even going to indulge. I think Kong and Gunna got it exactly what it is. Definitely. You're paying me to make sure your game is playable. You're charging me to make sure your game is playable. That's it. I have nothing else to say to that. It's not a hot take that I disagree with. No.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with it as well. There are some early access games that are a bit egregious. Like, they've been in early access for God knows how long, and it's practically a quote unquote completed game, riddled with tons and tons of bugs. And it's like, if I'm having early access to the game, I expect it to be a certain level of completion in terms of the riddance of bugs, the fluidity of the gameplay. I intend it to be a better experience than just a demo or like an actual beta. But there are a lot of companies who are just pushing out this early access to get their numbers out as soon as possible, taking advantage of, as you know, Gunnar alluded to, the diehard fans, and just gaining a quick buck, and hiding behind the whole early access moniker. Like, hey, this is early access, so there might be tons and tons of bugs that we haven't figured out as of yet. So bear with us until the game actually launches. So I definitely agree with this hot take. It's they're definitely paid betas. So yeah.
I'll just add that this might be unrelated, but I'd rather take early access versus Kickstarter because I've
Ooh.
Oh
supported
yeah, I
Kickstarter
remember that.
projects, and those are more egregious in my opinion. So I have two examples. So example number one is Mighty Number Nine. Very easy to point to Kickstarter that went wrong in so many levels. So I supported Mighty Number Nine. I think I gave them like $50 or $60 Kickstart support. Kenji Fune was working on that game because he got either let go from Capcom or he left Capcom, and they canceled Mega Man Legends 3 because that was like his baby project, and they canceled it to spite him. But I think also because they were afraid that the game wouldn't perform, so they just killed it before, you know, pouring any more resources into that project. But anyway, I supported Mighty Number Nine. The game came out, and we were supposed those who supported the game were supposed to get digital copies of the games before the launch of the game. I didn't get my digital code until like almost 6 months after the launch of the game, which at that point I already bought the game. I bought a hard copy, I think on PS4 or Wii U, one of the two. And the game was super mid. It was not very good. It was okay, but it wasn't like great. So that's one example. Then another example is somebody I knew who was working on a project started a Kickstarter for like this dungeon crawling, like, Zelda light game that looked pretty cool. And I was like, oh, that game looks interesting. And they had a Kickstarter, and I invested into the Kickstarter. I threw them $20. And I was like, after that initial investment, not that $20 is a lot, but like, it's my $20.
20 bucks is
So,
20 bucks, yeah.
you know, and so I didn't hear anything. And so I reached out to like the game devs, and they said, yeah, that project was canceled. And I go, oh, okay, well, so I mean, I invested into the Kickstarter. Is it like a refund policy or anything? Like, oh no, there's no refunds on that. And I go, wow, so you just took my money, did nothing with it as far as I'm concerned, and I'm just told to go fuck myself. So while early access games are like can be like bad, I more okay with that only because it's like at least you're getting something for your initial investment.
Yeah.
It might be a buggy mess, but it's something, and like it's early access, so your expectations should be tempered. Versus a Kickstarter, which you may get nothing, or you might get something that like you might get something super delayed, or you might get a low quality product, or all of the above, or you get nothing, right? So like I'm okay with early access. You as a consumer, you have to be aware enough to like be able to differentiate whether or not this is a good investment for you, and if you're okay with not necessarily getting a good return on that investment. So that's all I'll say about that. Let me know when you're ready for the next spin.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, $20 is a matter of perspective, especially in this economy. You know, it might not be a lot to some, but it's definitely a lot to, you know.
Well, this was like 12 years ago, so I'm not sweating it too hard.
Yeah, true. But then also, you know, in comparison, imagine a person who like put in $200, you know, and not getting a return and whatnot. So I can definitely see where Kickstarters are, you know, can be a pain and be shown and perceived in a negative light. It's yeah, that's a lot worse than than early access. Do you guys do anybody else have anything else to chime in before we move on to the next one?
No. I, well, other than like, yeah, modern game companies love to use early access as a new marketing ploy. With like modern games, modern slot games, early access is the official release date. So that's that. They're just abusing the word to get hype and get $10 to $20 more out of you.
Yeah. True. True. All right. Let's spin it again. No.
All right, I was just eliminating 9 just so that we don't get that
Yeah, that made
uh,
sense.
result again.
Even though
All
6
right.
looked like a 9. Whoops.
I thought it was a 9, which is why I went back. I was like, wait a second. I was like, oh, that's a 6, you dumbass. Anyway, let's spin the wheel of fate.
All right.
Oh, okay. Bing.
Okay, we got 3.
Number 3. What do we got?
All right, we have Nintendo gets away with bad hardware because of nostalgia.
This is like these topics are way too easy, so I'm gonna let somebody else go while I adjust the wheel.
Okay. So, spoiler alert, I guess. I heard this one before from Esoteric.
Mhm.
What do you mean by bad hardware in direct correlation to nostalgia? Like, do you mean people give like, let's say the Switch when it first came out, it was technically already obsolete in terms of its like its specs compared to PlayStation 4 and the Xbox. Is that what you mean by like nostalgia, or um like the
I
fact
think
that the
it's more so
console?
they're. I think it's more so they're successful because of their nostalgia, despite their their hardware limitations or their hardware
Yeah,
shortcomings.
like their
Okay,
nostalgia carries the brand as opposed to their hardware. In
okay,
terms and regards to the hardware, I would say it's comparative to the counterparts of whichever their competing consoles were at the time. So
okay.
yeah.
So now that I have a better understanding of that, I'm gonna say no. They don't get away with it because of nostalgia. This is old Nintendo now. New Nintendo is like, give me your money, bitch. I want your whole credit card now. I'm talking about pre Switch 2. Switch 2, they've gone over, I don't know what they're sipping. They're sipping that Ubisoft tea. And unlike Ubisoft, they're going to get away with it. But before, Nintendo always was the budget option if we had to compare it to the other consoles. If you wanted your quote unquote high end systems, you would go with whatever's the current PlayStation or the current Xbox, and you would fight about how many teraflops you guys had between you two. Nintendo used to be the budget option where you knew that the console itself wasn't going to be a graphical juggernaut, and we were all singing the praises when Nintendo finally got to 1080p. We're like, "Oh my God, they're at 1080p." We're like, "We're living it large now." Meanwhile, PlayStation was like, "We got 4K." Xbox is like, "We got 8K." But what allowed Nintendo to do that is that the developers, especially the first party in-house developers, were able to basically squeeze out every amount of oomph that console had to make their games look and run great. And where Nintendo won was their first party supports, their Mario's, their Zeldas, their Metroids. So people were willing to overlook the quote unquote inferior console because they were getting quality experiences on the Switch. And because the console was technically underpowered, its MSRP was lower than a PlayStation 4 or 5 or Xbox. So when you went to the game store and you wanted to play something, you can get a quality console while not beefy, was quality in what it offered, and was a basically a easier pill to swallow in terms of the number you saw at the register. So that I disagree with that take. That's old Nintendo again. Switch to Nintendo is another story. That's they've lost the plot, but my relation is to old pre-Switch to Nintendo.
Okay, I guess I'm gonna go next. Honestly, I feel as though I agree with the take. And here's why I agree with the take. Nintendo has always prided themselves in their exclusives, and their exclusives hold a shit ton of weight, right? From Mario to Zelda to Metroid and so on and so forth. They always held a lot of weight from since they started as Nintendo all the way till now. Which is why I say that. Also, it seems as though Nintendo prioritizes gameplay over the hardware as well, because their games, although there are like limitations on their consoles per se, their gameplay for the most part is always a good experience. Not talking about you, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, but all the other games that are housed within the console are pretty good. Mario Kart is still running just fine. People have had wonderful experiences with Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom. If we go even far back, like the GameCube, which had its hardware limitations as well, produced games like Resident Evil 4. That was the first game, the first Resident Evil 4 to come on the GameCube. And then it kind of got dispersed to other systems and then became like a, you know, everyone
The
gets a
Skyrim
turn
of
type of
Resident
thing.
Evil.
Yeah, pretty much. And also with its limitations, they also produced Metroid Prime, the very first Metroid Prime, which looked incredible due to the it looked incredible despite the hardware limitations. And I'm talking about in comparison to whatever the counterparts of their competitors were. I believe it was the PS2 during that time, as well as like the first Xbox. I think that was along the competitors of the Nintendo GameCube. So they were they were doing really well. Also, like, their games produce recycled gameplay. Like, there's this longevity to their content. You have games like Super Smash Brothers. You have again Mario Kart, where people who have been playing this game since the Wii U. The Wii U. I think Brawl was Nintendo Wii, and I think it got ported to the Wii U, and then it came out again with it came out again on the Nintendo Switch. And then Mario Kart, the same thing. You had Mario Kart 8, then you had this Mario Kart. And then not only do they're able to kind of reinvent the wheel per se, they add new content associated with that already existing game. Like Mario Kart 8 recently got like maybe I think it was like maybe 16 new tracks if I'm not mistaken. And some of those tracks were brand new and other tracks were from prior games of the Mario Kart series. So I would say that they get away with bad hardware due to nostalgia, because these games have acquired a level of love that I would say a lot of games nowadays are not getting. I mean, how many exclusive titles from other consoles have come out that were like that can go about that nostalgia? Like, we haven't gotten a Gears of War in God knows how long. Parappa the Rapper. We recently got like some Crash Bandicoot games, like Crash Bandicoot 4, like not too long ago. There's not a lot of like exclusives that are pushing that nostalgia factor, as opposed to like what Nintendo is doing with their stuff. So, me personally, I agree with the take. What say you guys?
All right, so I guess I'll go. So I think I agree with it, even though I don't think it's just nostalgia that's carrying a lot of weight for them. I think it's also that they have a certain level of Nintendo quality to their software that does a lot of heavy lifting too. So, but just to answer the question, I think so. I think nostalgia does carry a lot of weight, because if we look at other consoles that weren't successful, that didn't have the legacy weight that Nintendo carries with it, we look at the PlayStation, we look at the Vita, and we look at the PSP. And overall, those consoles, while great, I would argue that the Vita is probably the best handheld system ever, from just a technical standpoint and from feature standpoint. I mean, it had an OLED screen before that was even like a standard,
True.
right?
True.
So those games failed because, well, they failed for multiple reasons, but one of the major reasons why those consoles failed was because they didn't have the software to back it up. and software is everything. And we see that with every iteration of a Nintendo console, whether or not if the question is the question becomes, was the console successful? Yes or no. Why? How was the software look? How did the software look for that particular console? If the answer was, the software was kind of weak, then the console failed. So like if we look at the N64, the N64 was not a commercial success. It had good software. It had a few pieces of good software, but not that many, right? And then the GameCube, they tried to turn it around and they tried to like give you a free copy of Mario Kart with your purchase of a GameCube because they were trying to like recoup the loss of the N64 because PlayStation beat them down so bad. Um, and so the GameCube is another console. A lot of people praise it, and the GameCube prices are fucking retarded right now. If you're
Yeah.
trying to collect for GameCube, but like GameCube kind of pales in comparison to the PlayStation 2 and even to some degree the Xbox, which is, I'm not saying the Xbox is better. I'm just saying it's depending on who you ask.
Objectively speaking, yeah. That's what, yeah.
Depending on who you ask and what experiences you like. But yeah, I think Nintendo's success is linked to their software. The most successful console before the Switch was the Wii. The Wii came with Wii Sports. The Wii Sports moved a lot of units for them. When Mario Kart Wii came out and they bundled Mario Kart Wii with the Wii console, I think holiday 2010, that moved a lot of units because there was a lot of value there. And it wasn't, the hardware was new and innovative, but like once you got past the honeymoon period, the hardware became kind of annoying to deal with. And you didn't play the Wii because the Wii was amazing. You played the Wii because it was either A, fun, or B, the game you like is on the Wii only. That's it, boiled down to that, right? And they got big headed and they came out with the Wii U and they ate shit because there was no software for the Wii U at launch, at least nothing of substantial value. And they learned from that and they launched the Switch with Breath of the Wild, which was like the best move for them because look how well the Switch did, right? And they're still learning because the Switch 2 is going to launch with, the new Donkey Kong game that looks fantastic, and Mario Kart World, which is going to be the app seller and the console mover for that generation. So,
Yeah.
and those games are going to move those consoles not because the Switch 2 is revolutionary.
Yeah.
No, it's absolutely not revolutionary. There's nothing revolutionary about it. It's a fucking Nintendo console. That means I can play my Nintendo games on it. And look at the Nintendo games that we're getting: Mario Kart World, and for some, Donkey Kong Bonanza. That's what's going to sell the console. If you want a top tier handheld experience, you get a Steam Deck or you get a ROG Ally, whatever it is.
ROG,
and all these other consoles that are out there that blows the Switch and the Switch 2 out of the water. So I agree with the take. I think nostalgia and asterisks and the Nintendo quality of their first party software is what sells their consoles. It's not their console itself. The console is just a vehicle to the software.
Yeah.
I'm done.
I agree with that last sentence that Kong said, but I don't agree with them being considered bad hardware. I think they're weaker hardware, but they're not bad hardware.
That's correct.
So-
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Yeah,
It's not
yeah.
bad. It's just not
Weaker.
state of the art.
Yeah, that's why I
Right.
stated in comparison to their competitors at the time of what they were
So-
giving for those consoles.
The reason why I agree is everything that Kong said, but at the same time, I can also see, all right, here's my experience. I have the Steam console. There's a lot of games on the Steam console, not Steam overall, but the Steam Deck console that cannot, or the games have a hard time running on. A lot. Tales of Berseria, and these are old PS2 games. Tales of Berseria, Batman Arkham City, which I tried to play it on. The Devil May Cry 1, 2, and 3. Like there are cutscenes in Devil May Cry 3 that don't even have sound because it's on the Steam Deck.
Oh, wow. Didn't know that.
Right. So my thing is Devil May Cry 3 Special Edition, Collection Edition, or Devil May Cry Collection Edition with 1, 2, and 3 is on the Switch. I don't have, the Switch doesn't have those problems playing that game. But the Steam Deck does. But the Steam Deck is a stronger console. So what I say that to say this, that I spent the Steam Deck was a pretty expensive piece of machinery, and there are games on it that I cannot play unless I have a computer, even though it runs through the Steam system or the Steam core. So I would rather play my Switch than the Steam, because the games I'm playing on the Switch are running. They're running at least.
Not you, Pokemon Scarlet and Violet.
Except
Not
for,
you, Pokemon
except for
Scarlet and
Scarlet and
Violet.
Violet.
They run.
Exactly.
They
Exactly. That game
More limp.
particularly,
It doesn't run. It limps.
that game particularly doesn't. So that's why I say that they yeah, I think they do have weaker systems, but they have better games. They have actual quality games, and that does play in part with the nostalgia. Everybody and their mother knows Mario. They know who he is.
I
They can
mean,
identify
how
who
many
he is.
people popped when they saw GameCube being supported on the Switch 2? That's also going to move a lot of units for people.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's all nostalgia. So,
That's nostalgia right there. So I do agree with that. I agree with the hot take of Nintendo gets away with weaker hardware due to nostalgia. I agree with that take. But I don't agree with the take of bad hardware, because I don't think it's bad hardware. I just think because they refuse to change, or up until now with the Switch 2, they refuse to change from their toy origins. They had a lot of very gimmicky things.
yeah, dude, we're getting that 2009 video quality with their new webcam. You saw that?
Right. But like, even with the new one coming out, with it being it's I would say it's probably on par with the baseline Steam Deck, or because it's not OLED. I don't think so.
No,
So
it's
standard.
yeah, it's standard. It's not OLED,
So it's not
unfortunately.
OLED. So it's on the baseline. So it's on par with the baseline Steam, and still cheaper than the baseline Steam. So yeah, it had to go up in price, but it had to go up in price. And again, like I said, the biggest advantage that it has versus other consoles is it's partially on go, partially on the go, the nostalgia, the quality games. Those are convenient. There's a sense of convenience, a sense of comfort, and a sense of reliability that comes with that. I'm not justifying the console for everything they're doing with it, but I can understand certain things that's like, okay, well, this part makes sense and this part makes sense. But I still have a lot of why. And that's what's kind of disappointing about the Switch 2 coming out, anyways. But overall, weaker, yes. It's nostalgic, yes. Makes them feel like they can get away with the things that they do, much like Scarlet and Violet. Because if we held them more accountable to Scarlet and Violet, then we would have gotten, hopefully the next one will be better. But we don't know that, because Scarlet and Violet is what? The second best selling of the franchise, or the first, or it took Gala Region's place, because Gala was the number one selling game for the franchise, I think. And
Wow.
now Scarlet and Violet is, I think.
Okay.
That doesn't help. That really doesn't help, you know. But that money came from nostalgia. 25 years. So yeah, I agree with the take.
Yeah.
As long as we're using weaker and not bad.
Yeah, and I will also add to this. I think the only reason why Nintendo even came out with a console is because people were complaining about how old the Switch was, or and like third party developers are probably going to shy away from doing anything on the Switch because they like the new bells and whistles on other consoles. So Nintendo was like, you know what, we're gonna bump it up a little bit. We want to maybe do a little bit more with the exclusives that we work on. Maybe we want to do more innovative things. So we're just gonna do that. And unfortunately, when you upgrade parts in your hardware, that costs more money. And them being a business, they have to kind of get that cost back in some way, shape, or form, which affects us. So, I mean, my take would be, if they come out with a Switch 2, 3, 4, 5, as long as the games are good, I will support them because honestly, I'm at this point where I don't care about the innovation of the console. All I care about is playing good games. That's it. So
All right, esoteric. So how much time we got left? We got time for one or two more topics, you think?
it depends. It honestly depends, but we're 30 minutes in, so
All right, so we got time.
Probably
yeah,
two.
yeah. We
Yeah.
probably two or
All right,
three.
Unless the
so-
next one's a doozy.
I want a doozy. I want to piss some people off. Let's spin this motherfucker.
It's looking like 4.
Ooh, almost was 2.
It is 4.
Okay,
What do we
this
got?
one is an easy one, I think. Backwards compatibility should be a standard.
Yes,
Yes.
a resounding yes. What do you
Yeah.
say?
That's like saying reverse camera shouldn't be a standard. Yes, it's a standard. Period. Like
Well, it isn't the standard, but it should
Right.
be a standard.
Yeah,
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
I
It
agree.
should be.
Should
It
be a
should be.
standard.
And I'm talking about like real backwards compatible. None of this Xbox shit. None of this now Switch 2
Yeah, we
shit.
want native, hardware-based backwards compatibility. That's
Yeah.
what we want. We
yeah.
don't want this emulation shit. We can emulate on our PCs. We want if we're buying first-party hardware at premium pricing, we want hard. And I'm willing to pay more if that's what it means. If there's like 2 versions of Switch 2, and there's Switch 2 and then Switch 2 Plus or whatever, and the Plus console is like, let's say $100 more, but you get to natively backwards compatibly play let's say Switch games, or if you want to get crazy, could backwards compatibly play Switch, 3DS, and DS games, for example, that would absolutely sell me. Like it's like it's a done deal. Here's my money.
Listen,
$600, you got it.
Listen, this is what they could do with the Switch 2, right? Now that they have 2 USB-C ports, they can make a separate screen, a foldable screen, making it a Nintendo 3DS Max or a DS Max, and then have a compartment to add 3DS support for the games. DS, 3DS, like they can absolutely do that. And
It sounds
I'd be
good.
here for it.
But you know what? You know what they're gonna do? They're gonna charge you $90 for a controller.
No. What they're gonna do is they're gonna give you, here's our digital library. Choose from that, and you have to submit monthly subscriptions for it. That's what they're gonna do. That's why I think, although it's a unanimously agreement to the hot take, it's not going to happen. If anything, it's going to be phased out even more because of the direction of digital media, and at least that's what I think. But yeah,
No, you're 100% on nailing it on the head. They're what I'm suggesting is a pipe dream. It will never happen. It's like Bloodborne 2. It's not happening, man. It's done. Mega Man Legends 3, Bloodborne 2, Half-Life 3. It's not happening. It's done, bro. It's not. It's done. The aliens will come down from the heavens, from the sky, before we get any of those sequels.
But
so
here's my question though. Let's say in a ideal society where everybody is frowning upon digital media, and
do we have flying cars?
maybe we could have flying. Hell, maybe we could fly ourselves. We got flying suits or whatever.
Sick. Sick. Okay,
Exoskeletons or whatever. Wouldn't having access to or pretty much backwards compatibility being the standard for all consoles moving forward, do you guys think that would hinder creativity of exclusive titles on that system?
I think it could go either way. I think if the industry didn't have the option to remaster or relaunch games from the past in order to create new money for the company, and they were forced to compete with not just the current market but also legacy markets, it would create a flight or die situation really for them, because it's like, well, we're either going to make new content that's going to be somehow superior to legacy content, or we're just never going to hit that standard again and the industry will just crumble. So like,
Okay.
It's one or the other, and it's likely going to be the former. The industry will crumble because, you know, I think the artists of today, for the most part, and the creators of today are just not that creative.
Concord.
And so
Sorry.
did you just mention the best selling Sony online only multiplayer live service game in history, Concord?
That was worth millions. Yes.
Hundreds of millions, apparently. I think it would be bad for the industry from a longevity standpoint, and the secondhand market would just take over and replace the main market, because then people would just buy and play old games over and over again, and like the only new games that we would get would be indie games, which would just be throwbacks to like old games, because it's easy to imitate something that's been established versus making something new.
Yeah.
Right? Oblivion remaster, right? That's what everybody's playing right now. It's like that game is 20 years old, which is mind blowing to me, but 19 years old.
Damn.
But yeah, right. It doesn't
Okay.
feel. 2006 was 19 years ago.
Jesus.
So, yeah. You feel your back starting to crack and your hips starting to ache a little bit. Like, oh
Shit, I'm going to the chiropractor tomorrow. So yeah, I've
it's like
been
that
feeling
Matt
it.
Damon gif
Oh yes,
where he just gets
fucking-
old over time.
Yep. Like
Yeah.
Shulk, I'm
But
really
anyway,
feeling it.
I think we all unanimously agree that backwards compatibility should be a standard via our opinions, and we're just obviously biased because we're consumers. So yeah, so we get to spin again, or anybody else want to add to
no,
that?
but that's simple and clean cut.
Yeah,
cut.
simple and clean. Yeah, it's Diamond Hearts, right? Kingdom Hearts. I know.
Oh, love straddling the line there.
Number 10. What do we got? So
Damn. Okay, I was hoping it was number 8. Silent protagonists are outdated.
Oh,
I'm gonna say I disagree. I think silent protagonists can still work even in the modern setting. But in order to satisfy the appetite of modern gamers, the surrounding story has to be pretty on point or immaculate for that to be excusable. That's it. I don't really have much to say about that other than that.
yeah. I think outdated might be too harsh of a word. I think it can still be done well, but much like Kong said, the story has to be equally well done to make a silent protagonist work, because that's an RPG staple. Like RPGs are synonymous with silent protagonists, and usually the story kind of makes up for the silent protagonist, because for those who don't know, silent protagonists are meant to be a reflection of you. They're silent because you're supposed to imagine yourself in the game. That's kind of the point. And when the character has a voice, it kind of takes it out because it's obviously not your voice. So for some people, it makes them feel like, it might be my character, but it's not because this character's speaking and it's obviously not me. I think a nice middle ground is kind of a hybrid situation, kind of like what they did with Monster Hunter Wilds, where your character is no longer a silent protagonist, but they're a man or woman a few words. They'll say a couple lines, they'll like they'll espouse emotion, but they're not having, they're not competing with Alma for the gabbiest fucking woman on the crew. So I think that's a nice middle ground. Or if you want to go, I think the old Mass Effect games used to do it. You had Fem Shep and you had Male Shep, and you could make your Shepherd look however you want, male or female. I know, crazy times they were. Um, and Fem Shep had a speech, and all the lines were voiced as her, and Male Shep, all the lines were voiced as him. I like that because even though the character wasn't silent, it was still my character. My creation was interacting with the game world, and it felt more personal because she could make a funny retort. She could flirt. She could, you know, espouse anger and sadness. So outdated, no, but I kind of like the middle ground of the character of few words, because a lot of games don't do the silent protagonist well. Especially with Zelda, I think Zelda kind of needs to, as a longtime Zelda fan, I think they need to kind of take that step forward and not make Link this fucking like blabbermouth, but much like Monster Hunter Wilds, kind of have the middle ground where Link will talk every now and then, but he will be largely silent. He'll be a man of few words.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Honestly speaking, if they were to change Link and make him start speaking, I don't know. It'll definitely be an adjustment for me. But then again, after thinking about what I just said, Breath of the Wild, every other character spoke, and they hit the nail on the head with it. Like I think every character had, because that was one of the biggest issues with the Legend of Zelda. A lot of people were complaining about there's and a lot of Nintendo games. This is like it's turning into a Nintendo segment. The characters don't really talk. I think the only game where they spoke from like the very beginning, almost the very beginning, was like Star Fox. Every other character did not talk at all. But yeah, I think they would do a really good job with Zelda if they were to add a voice to the character. As for the take, I definitely disagree. I don't think that they're outdated. I think when with technology progressing as it is, along with like AI or whatnot, there might be some tools that are on the up and up that might phase the silent protagonist out. Like for example, you have voice actors and actresses, voicing said character, and then I guess there'll be like an AI application that will allow them to kind of re-image the person's voice and utilize that for other words in the game that maybe the developer team didn't realize that they wanted to add in addition to it, as well as like character options as well. They're saying yes, no, they're expressing their disdain about something, whatever the conversation may be. So I do think that with the tools that are coming out and being more robust, the silent protagonist will be phased out. But I don't. I disagree with the take. I think that they can absolutely share the same space together. What say you, Wolf? All right, it looks like Wolf is being a silent protagonist as of right now.
No, sorry, the mic didn't want to
You should
unmute.
in post. You should add dot 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 dot.
I think it depends on the game. If it's a choice-based game or heavily story-based game, and you want players to make choices, then a silent protagonist isn't bad. But especially if it's a weaker console.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not a weaker console, like if it's one of those lower, I guess, games that's like Octopath and Bravely Default, like they don't put in that much emphasis on like the graphics and the flashiness, but more so on the story and the getting in depth with the gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
Silent protagonist is not a bad thing, in my personal opinion, but I do feel like they are getting phased out. Like more and more of these video game characters are chatty because they want to, because of certain agendas that they're trying to push. And an easy way to push agenda is by using words. So a lot of them have a little too much to say. Like I think Horizon would have been a better game if the character talked less and just played. That's why I like Elden Ring in a sense. The Souls games, I can appreciate them in that sense. The characters don't really talk much. It's mostly like gameplay, and it's up to you to figure out the story. But a silent, there's nothing wrong in my opinion, with a silent hero
Yeah,
or heroine
yeah,
like Samus,
yeah.
she can talk. She's done it before, but she's not chatty.
No, she definitely isn't. Like she wasn't chatty in Other M. Well, she was a little bit more chatty than usual in Other M, but I think they captured her perfectly in Dread, because she spoke like maybe in two scenes or whatever.
Yeah.
But then again, in that game, she didn't really have anybody to speak to. I think it was like one Chozo that she ended up speaking, indulging in conversation with. But yeah, I definitely agree with that. And it, with Horizon, I don't have an issue with the character talking. I have an issue with the character talking in certain segments when she should not. I want to be able to solve the puzzle on my own. She does not need to monologue in order for me to solve a puzzle, or at least turn that option off. Have the option for me to turn
Man,
off
it
the
looks like I
monologuing.
can hit that lever, and that might activate the bridge. Maybe.
Yeah, it's
Like,
like
It's a lot. Yeah,
thanks.
it's a lot like the Spider-Man games. It's a lot like that.
That
Yeah.
too. That too.
Mhm.
And it's like I'm watching an episode of Dora Explorer. Like, oh, maybe I can use this. Can you see it? Oh my god!
I don't know. To
Like,
me, so I think Gunnar was on point when he said a man of few words. Those are some of the best and coolest protagonists in any media, I think.
Mhm.
You think
Mhm.
Kratos in like 2018 God
Mhm.
of War, I think Master Chief, like just
Mhm.
those one-liners where it's just like, give me a weapon. And that's it. That's all he says. That's all he needs to say. Sometimes less
Mhm.
is more, you know?
Yeah.
So like Metal Gear
Yeah.
Mhm.
Solid, Snake ain't out here talking your ear off. He's just like, he just says
Metal
one or two
Gear.
things, and that's it. Yeah, Metal Gear. I have to stop it. Shadow Moses. And that's it. It's like, this guy's
Mhm.
so fucking cool. That's great.
Mhm.
Fucking Horizon, bro. They're just talk.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
Talk.
a
they
yak
talk. It's
fest.
a lot of talk.
It's
It's a
like,
lot.
brother,
Mhm.
fucking shoot me. Can I shoot some fucking dinosaurs, please?
Mhm. And even like when I watch my kid play Spider-Man, like I know that Spider-Man is a chatty character overall, but it's him, the enemies, the boss, the
Yeah.
intercom, Miles Morales, and everyone wants to talk at the same time, and it's like it sounds like a concert. Doesn't it doesn't sound like he's in the middle of a fight and you got enemies screaming, get him, get him, get him. Then you got the boss screaming, you can't beat me. Then you got Miles saying, oh my gosh, let's go over here and do something. And then he's talking. You gotta like it's like, why is everyone talking?
well,
Just fight.
the thing is, that's always been the dynamic of Spider-Man. When you watch the '90s cartoons,
Yes, I know
everybody's
that. I know he's a chatty person. I understand that.
no, but
And I'm
the
expecting
enemies
it.
too, and all of that too. They were always engaged in back and forth,
It's
like.
just too much because it's like they gave each and every character the same generic line. So you hear the same voice actor in the same tone
I'm
from like
more
three different
okay with
guys.
that than cutscene chattiness
It's
or
it's
like
all
walking chats.
there. It's all there through the whole game. With the walking chats, the
That's
cutscene,
what I don't
the
like.
like
If it's like banter, combat banter, I don't mind that at all, as long as it's like interesting to hear or at least funny. But it's the
but that's
walking
what I would
chats that kill me.
expect, right? I would expect the quips, I would expect the smart comments, I would expect the jokes. At least in Spider-Man 2, he doesn't do any of that. Like he's a little more serious. So the banter and the fighting to me is just more like, if you like you're not you're not saying your jokes, you're not trying to confuse the enemy by getting in their skin. Really, you're just complaining through the whole fight. So at this point, it's like, talk less now. You know,
Almost like a woman developed it. I couldn't help myself. I'm sorry.
so it's like, and yeah, and those things, I just let's use Monster Hunter Wilds, right? Those little walking and talks, like, shut up. This is like, like those things are just getting to me at this point. But I do like I like characters that talk less. Um, I'm okay if they give, like what Gunnar said about giving Link a few words here and there, but they got to be smart about it, because what they definitely don't want is to create that imbalance between the three of them, which where Ganondorf is a little bit of like he'll run at the mouth and he'll preach and he'll talk and whatever, even though it's a lot of reading because they refuse to use voiceovers up until now. Um, which was the opposite of the stoic, quiet, silent type. that Link is, you know, but giving him a few voice lines here and there instead of just grunts would do the character some justice. Just don't make him like this chick from Horizon, whatever her name is.
Yeah.
Aloy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, even like I'm sorry, I'm gonna put it out there. Even Drake, I felt talked too much in his game. I felt Drake talked too much, and that was another thing why I didn't really like Drake's unfortunate or whatever Uncharted. There we go. That's another thing with Uncharted as well. I just felt like shut up.
Well, he fell into the same kind of, you know, characteristics as like Peter, you know, because he had
he was very chatty and like I said again, for me it's like I don't care to hear it per se. I'm not saying that every video game should be that way because I like Travis Touchdown and he talks a lot, but what I like is that there was always a balance. Like when there were cutscenes and important story nodes, yes, he had a lot to say, but in the fight, there was very little banter. And the fight allowed you to focus on the fight. You didn't really the enemies would talk a lot, but he talked less. You heard less voice lines from him, which showed that as a fighter, he's focused, but in every other scenario, he's a little more goofy. I appreciated that because at least in the actual gameplay of the game, I can focus on the gameplay and not try to hear what he's saying and or annoy me with the constant talking. I don't know. I feel like I'm complaining and talking too much myself. So
I'll say one more thing. I think Fuse did it the best with Kong's characters. Like, so you're gonna hit me now, or like?
yeah, he didn't talk much. Kong's character did not talk. Dalton did not talk a lot at all.
Yeah, he was great.
Yeah.
I think they all were. They were all funny in their own way, but
Yeah.
Dalton took the cake.
Yeah. And
He's
he talked the least out of everyone.
Yeah, he was the guy that's like, I'm doing this because I have to, not because I want to. I don't feel like coming into work today.
Which is super relatable, man. I was like, I feel you, man. So, Esoteric, do we have time to do number 8? You said number 8 was pretty hot.
We got time for one more.
So should we spin the wheel? Or should we just cheat and do number 8?
Let's spin the wheel. I mean,
right.
Yeah, let's spin the wheel.
Up.
6?
No.
Okay, here's one I think we all can chime in on. Souls-like games aren't hard. They just lack tutorials.
They cheat the shit out of you. That's what they do.
I will say that they're not hard because there are in any Souls games, there's a lot of options. And with being in the age of the internet, you have access to immense information on builds and strategies and all this, right? And
well, let's take away the internet. Let's take away the internet in its entirety. Let's take it as a face value.
Play the games in a vacuum?
Yes.
Because
that can be said with any game, right? Finding information outside of the game itself can be said about any game.
True, but like with Souls games, because it's an RPG and you can overleveling is a thing, that can tip the scales to your advantage. Whereas if you're looking up information on how to beat like Ninja Gaiden on the Super Nintendo, you could look at all the fucking video footage you want. You have to execute the actual level, which is like, it's all skill at that point. You can know where the traps are and know where the enemy placement is, but it doesn't, like, there's no in-game stat that says now you'll beat this, you'll be more successful. That doesn't exist in those games.
That is true,
like,
but in that same token, you can definitely overlevel in a Souls game. However, you have to find the right weapon that's catered to your build, and you have to figure out how to reallocate your stats throughout the game, because they have mechanics like that where if you're in a vacuum, you're gonna have to figure that shit out, and it's gonna be very difficult too. So, it has its own.
You're kind of moving the goalposts here a little bit, but go ahead. What's up?
Wait, how? Okay,
I
go ahead.
want to interject because To Kong's point, I can tell you of a scenario I did in Elden Ring where I did a little research and I found out that in a very dangerous place, there's a dragon that you can kill no matter what level that you're on because of how the game is. And if you do kill the dragon, you get a crap ton of souls. Currency to over level your character to go back to the area that you would normally start off in Elden Ring. And I did that with the basic sword that they give you in the beginning of the game. And I killed the dragon and I got a crap ton of currency and I pumped it in my character. And it took me, because of all of that, doing it maybe like 3-4 times, it took me pretty much a good portion through the game until something else came out and took my attention. And all I really had to do was watch a 3-minute video on YouTube versus, like, say, I can watch how a person fights somebody, fights an NPC in a Ninja Gaiden game, or I can watch how a person fight. Let's use the same Souls game. I can watch how a person fights a boss in that Souls game. I still have to execute that if I didn't do the over leveling thing. If I did the over leveling thing by watching that other 3-minute video, that boss difficulty becomes null and void. But if I'm just playing the game and I get to that boss and I watch YouTube person 111 play the game and he's fighting the boss, I still have to execute that. I still have to put in the skill for it. So there's a difference there. So in a game like Souls, if you can over level by watching a 3-minute video, you kind of like what we talked about earlier, you took away the difficulty of the game. But a game where there is no real over leveling and you really have to deal with enemies as is, no matter how many research you do, it's still going to rely on your capabilities to execute those moves. That's what I'm saying. I agree with Kong.
Like, the strategies that you would use in Elden Ring or in Dark Souls 1 through 3 or even Demon Souls, these strategies are null and void in a game like Sekiro. Sekiro is all skill based. It's all execution and understanding the opposition. That is it. You can there's no, I'm gonna just get a bunch of extra beads and my character's gonna be a level 60. Like, that doesn't, no. Counter the enemy. That's it. There is no other way around it. So I think that game is true difficulty done correctly, whereas the Souls games, there's more wiggle room and there's more options and tools at your disposal to adjust the game's difficulty to whatever you want to play at.
No, absolutely. I agree with what you guys are saying, but in terms of, like, okay, it's saying that it's not hard, it just lacks tutorials. Is that, like, do you guys agree with that take or do you guys disagree with that take? Is it because, like, Sekiro, yes, it's execution based, but there was enough of a tutorial that provided to you to understand how the game played. Do you guys think that the other Souls games gave that same type of...
So do me a favor, read the prompt to me one more time so I can answer the question directly.
So the prompt is, hold on, I'm looking for it now. Souls-like games aren't hard, they just lack tutorials.
I think even with tutorials, they would still be difficult. So if you didn't change anything about them, they would, because they still require a certain level of execution and environmental awareness and all these other, like, gamer skills that you need to have.
Right. It's not something a tutorial will teach you. It's just based on your experience and trial and error.
But
so I would say, just to answer the question, I think Souls games would still be difficult with or without tutorials. So that's my answer.
So,
Okay.
I mean, okay, if we want to talk about Elden Ring, we've mentioned it enough times. Elden Ring does have literal tutorials. It has a tutorial cave in the beginning of the game.
Yeah.
When you fall down, it is a tutorial, teaches you how to parry, or not teaches you, it tells you what's parry, what button to
Mm-hmm.
press, what a backstab is, how to achieve a
Mm.
backstab, how to crouch, and then at the end it gives you a boss, which is
So you
just a
can execute
normal.
all of it.
Yeah, it literally
Yeah, come to
gives
think
you a
of it, all of
tutorial.
them give you that.
Mm.
Even the first Demon Souls on PS3, there was a tutorial area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I
So
think I
So
think the take comes from people wanting to compare it or wanting to have the games that's like, again, Horizon, Spider-Man, those types of games where by listening to the character talk, the game
so
is
modern
given
tutorial.
away to you. Right. I think that's where the take should go or should be coming from. Where Elden Ring goes or the Souls games is more old school tutorial where it's literally they'll tell you these are what you can do in the beginning or when you acquire it, and then at that point now you have to learn how to execute it.
yeah,
It's up
like
to you.
they won't tell you, oh, this by the way, the soft cap for intelligence is 30, the hard cap is 60. They won't tell you that. Either you learn that from an internet source, or if you want to keep it to Esoteric's point, if you want to keep it solely within the game, you have to use your eyeballs and a couple of brain cells to go, at up until 30, I was getting 5 points in magic attack per level. After 30, I'm getting 4. Okay, let's keep leveling it. After 60, I'm only getting 1 point. That sounds like a soft and a hard cap. There's no tutorial that tells you that. That's you looking at the game, seeing your numbers and going, "Oh, I'm seeing diminishing returns. This must be what these must be a soft and then a hard cap." If we're talking about that type of tutorial, then the game might as well just play yourself. So if I'm answering the question literally, Elden Ring is still hard, and they literally give you a tutorial. So they don't give you a step by step like, well, what other games would do, like, this is what leveling means, these are the soft caps, these are the hard caps, oh, this is what happens, this is what weapon scaling means. They don't do all of that. They leave that to you. And then if we go outside of the game to the internet, that's when you'll learn 30 is the soft cap, 60 is the hard cap, this is the max damage you'll get if you make this weapon scale S to strength as opposed to dexterity. This is why this weapon's the best dexterity weapon and this weapon's the best strength weapon. That's all either coming from you or the collective consciousness of the Dark Souls community. But the game does give you a tutorial. It's still hard, whether you played the tutorial or not. I've seen people get bodied to the tutorial boss. So,
And my thing is, regardless of it, if the whole idea of it being of the game needing a tutorial or the game needing to be less difficult or people's issue with the game's difficulty, to me it's like it's one of those topics that it's like I'm immediately going to shut it down because even though I'm not a fan of that type of game, there's more elements to why I'm not a fan of it. The difficulty thing, it's fine. It's trial and error, and you're playing against the NPC. You, if you lose a couple times, you lose a couple times.
right. Yeah.
It's learning, and that's what learning is. You're not designed. The game isn't designed to for you to win on your first try. If it was designed for you to win on your first try, then the bosses will most likely just stand there. And a good video game, if difficulty is its aim, you're going to see it. You're going to see it. Um, and people know that this is the culture of these types of games. People know this. So to go into the culture of these type of games and then complain about it, it's like just stay away from it. It's just that simple. You don't have to experience everything, in my personal opinion. But it's like at this point, even if it had a tutorial, it would still be a hard game. You know why it would still be a hard game? Because the game doesn't hold your hand. It'll tell a tutorial can tell you what to do and then leave you to the world. And
Yep.
once it does that, are you going to execute what the tutorial taught you? Are you even going to remember what the tutorial taught you? Are you willing to refer back to the tutorial? At that point, if you're not the type of gamer that's going to do it, then go by trial and error. If you see that rolling helps more or wearing less armor helps you roll more, go with that. If you feel like you want to put on every single shield you find and be a walking tank and that's making you survive, go with that. And I think that's the beauty of the game, is that it allows you to develop your play style and however you want to play it. So there's going to be a sense of difficulty because they have to match or they have to contest multiple people's train of thought. Those who want to be tanky, okay, well, we need a good amount of NPCs that can beat that. Those who want to be speedy or use magic from afar, we need a good amount of NPC characters that can that can deal with that. And then from there, you're going to get this array of all sorts of enemies that you're going to come across, and your build isn't going to fit every single enemy. So you're going to find difficulty in that naturally. So just it's not a hot take. It's one of those things that if I got into it, if I was talking to somebody else, I would just completely dismiss them.
Yeah, people who have that particular take, they want hand holding. They never wanted tutorials. They wanted hand holding.
So okay, so here's my question pertaining to it, because I'm assuming that this person, because to say that the game isn't hard that's a big like statement, this person is
So
saying,
I think it's super subjective. I think Wolf brings up a really
Mhm.
good point. Is that this question is going to vary greatly depending on who's answering it. So
Mhm.
I think for me and you, like when I think of a hard game, brother, I think of like NES Ninja Gaiden. I think of Contra. I
yeah,
think of Shakan on Sega Genesis. These games are fucking brutal.
yeah, yeah,
Brutal. Okay?
Mhm.
You want to play hard? You
yeah,
think Dark Souls is hard? Motherfucker, you get saves and checkpoints there. What are you
yeah,
talking about? Hard.
exactly,
So like
Mhm.
exactly.
for me, it's like that's hard because
Castlevania,
it's
like,
it's super unfair. And
Mhm.
it forces you to learn the game. You have to learn the game inside and out. You have to memorize everything, and you have to
Mhm.
execute everything flawlessly.
yeah,
In Dark Souls, that's still true, but to a much lesser degree. So it's like for me, it's like it's hard for me to say, "Oh, this game is super difficult. It's the hardest game ever." It's like I think you need to play more games, man, because there's harder shit
Yeah,
out there.
no, but
Mhm.
But
that's the thing. Like,
so,
according to this, they're saying that it's not hard. They're just saying that it's not
but
hard.
Gunner, I think brings up a great point too. To answer your question directly, even with the tutorials, these same people who pose this question would not finish the game. Like even if they had Horizon level tutorials, if you changed nothing but just added these tutorials, they would still suck.
Mhm.
yeah. Especially when Elden Ring gives you the modern tutorial. It pauses the game. It brings up a box. It says, "This is what parrying does. This is the button to parry," and then gives you a zombie who purposely has slow attack speed so you can practice parrying all day long. Like, I don't know how much more of a tutorial you want.
I guess.
Like,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, like they don't give you the specifics, like I said, about the soft caps, hard caps, and the min max shit. But you don't need to min max to play and successfully finish
Not at all.
any Souls game.
Yeah.
Well, if specifically from software style games, you don't need to min and max. You could just kind of just fucking, oh, I like this axe or I like this greatsword because it looks cool.
You
I
can
look like
win.
Guts from Berserk, and you
Yeah.
just swing and you will win.
Yeah, I mean,
But like,
arguably you don't have to min max for any game in order to win. You could just go through it, because
yeah, but
in order to
I
min
don't
max, you
know.
must know everything about. You,
I'm taking
I don't
this
know.
hot take. I'm taking this hot take literally.
Yeah,
The game has tutorials. The new one straight up has a tutorial. If if it's still, the game is still difficult, and if you're having trouble even with the game that gave you what you wanted, which was a tutorial that explained the controls and key features of the game, then you were kind of a lost cause to begin with.
yeah.
Return the game and play fucking
Stardew
play the
Valley.
Play
Play
the fucking Last of Us for real this time. This is the last time we're releasing the game version. Go play that. It's over there.
Okay, because here's how I interpret it. Because yeah, clearly after like having a discussion with you guys, it has very different like points that you could address from this open statement alone. Because I can't see. Well, you know, there are some people like that, but based on this take, I was taking it from someone who actually finished the game, but there were certain aspects of the game that they had to figure out pertaining to like point allocations, pertaining to like rescoping your point allocation, things like that. Because yes, they absolutely do give you the tutorials, and like me, I played Unga Bunga throughout the entire game, so a lot of the different things didn't matter to me that most people would have wanted, like maybe Magic, because I think Magic is a little more a Magic user in terms of um, not the execution per se, because yes, Magic builds have an easier time in Souls games, but in terms of like building a Magic based user, you can correct me if I'm wrong. It has a little like a steeper learning curve to utilize and get to that point of being effective with Magic, as opposed to like an Unga Bunga user like myself.
Depends. I mean, without this getting into a From Software discussion,
Mhm.
depending on what style of Magic, depends on how you play and how you build and where you find certain spells. But I mean, that's not the point of this, so I don't want to get too much
Yeah,
into
yeah,
it.
yeah.
But
Yeah, so that's what I was that's how I was interpreting the question. Um,
I
is
mean,
from
even
that
if
perspective.
I were to grant you that, and let's say they had better UI and more clear information, and they made things like super clear to you. They beat you over the head with this information.
Yeah, it'll still
That would
be
just
hard.
make
It'll still be
that would just make the gameplay experience smoother as far as from
yeah.
like a character building aspect, because you would have a better understanding of certain elements. But like, if you change nothing else about the game and the boss battles are still the same and the world design is still the same, that still requires a certain level of execution. Like, it's just like, you have to get this monster's HP to zero, and you have to do it. And it's like, oh, there's tutorial will not save you. Like, at that
yeah,
point, you have to do it,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So
Just to clarify, I am in absolute disagreement with the take. I was just asking questions to like determine the angle as to how you guys
I mean,
approached
the
it.
question is
And
asking, would Dark Souls games be easier with more tutorials? And my answer is no.
no.
It's just it's a resounding no.
okay.
But
Nah, I don't think it would be easier.
I don't think so as well. It's just when
Mm.
the internet was brought up, it was like, well, I wanted to omit that because a game should be playable at its core,
well,
without
yeah,
outside
if the
forces. So
game were to somehow give you the same level of information that you could get online on like a wiki or something like that, and they somehow implement it into the game in a smooth, very clean way, I think the game will still be just as hard.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Mhm.
So easy, just as easier and hard depending who's playing it, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway, I think that's a wrap, right?
yeah. We are over. So
Yeah, I anticipated as much. All right, well, for those who enjoyed this episode, let us know in the comments. Comment down below. Let us know what you think about this format. Give the video a like if you enjoyed the conversation, a dislike if you didn't. If you have recommendations for topics that we should add to future hot takes, leave them in the comment section. Subscribe for more content. We do podcast episodes every single week. We publish every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern. So definitely subscribe and click the notification bell so that you're notified when those go live. There are also there's another channel. So this is the podcast channel. We have a normal Logical Gamers channel where Mr. Esoteric posts reviews as well as unboxing videos and some other videos as well, like opinion pieces. So definitely
mhm.
check out that channel as well. Check out the description for all the socials. So we have Twitter, Instagram, Discord. What's the other ones? Facebook.
Facebook. Yeah, you pretty much ran the gambit with
That's
that.
all of them. Check those out if you're on those platforms. Give us a follow on those. Check out Mr. Esoteric. He streams every Monday and Friday on Twitch. The link is in the description. Check him out. He plays all sorts of games. He's currently playing through South of Midnight, right?
Yeah,
That was the last like game you're playing. He also played through Assassin's Creed Shadows. He plays Call of Duty Black Ops 6 every now and again, as well as any other new games that come out. He played Monster Hunter Wilds as well. So he's pretty much on top of like the modern stuff. I don't know what's next on his list, but follow and then you'll find out. So anyway, with that being said, we'll see you next week for next week's episode. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll catch you next time.